I'm ashamed because the perpetrators of this very evil act are Muslim men, and to also use this opportunity to apologize to women.
This webinar series by Muriam Mata and Women's Radio is a very much needed opportunity for us to express our minds, and it is supported by MacArthur Foundation and RAPA. So we are very grateful for that, and we're grateful for this opportunity. And that being said, I'd like to introduce our speaker. He is in the name of Malam Abdurrahman Sani. I'd like to do a brief introduction of Malam Abdurrahman Sani so that you understand who you're introduced, well introduced to him. His name is Abdurrahman Sani. He's a sociology graduate. He's also a student of traditional Islamic studies, so he will be bringing a perspective of Islam here so that we understand that this issue isn't really taboo and there's a way around it. And his main interests are philosophy, Islamic law, and social problems. So he will be bringing a very, very much needed perspective to this conversation. Good morning, Malam Abdurrahman, and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Alhamdulillahi wahda wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God Almighty be upon all of us. Inshallah, I'm going to speak about the Islamic perspective on the question of rape, as it is familiar to us throughout the Quranic narratives and the prophetic traditions. Justice, or standing up for justice, is one of the key principles that we find in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and also the Quranic narrative. And the crime of rape is of the worst crimes known to humanity because it leaves permanent emotional injuries and psychological traumas. That's why sociologists would categorize the crime of rape as a social problem because it has wider social implications. Its negative impact is not limited to the victim alone. Similarly, the scholars of Islamic law would categorize the crime of rape as a crime which constitutes public harm. So it is in line of the public interest or maslaha for everyone to stand collectively against this evil. And then when we look at scholars of Islamic law have identified certain key objectives of the Sharia, of Islamic law, of the Muslim way of conduct. And when we look at the crime of rape and relate it to this maqasid Sharia, these higher objectives of the Sharia, we'll see that the crime of rape goes against at least three of the most fundamental objectives of the Sharia, which are hifzul aql, the preservation of the intellect. As I preface, rape leaves permanent psychological traumas, and then hifzun nafs, preservation of life, and then hifzun nasl, the preservation of progeny and ird and honor. So the scholar of Islamic law see it as an imperative for people to fight against such kind of evil. Then secondly, my second point is how Islamic scholars conceptualize the concept of rape. Because there's a fundamental difference between rape and the crime of adultery and fornication, because they are all crimes in the Islamic legal category. The classical Islamic scholars like Imam Malik, as we know in northern Nigeria, we usually practice the Maliki school of jurisprudence. Imam Malik conceptualized rape as zina bil ikrah, forced zina. And the fundamental difference between zina and rape is the evidentiary standards. As we know, in zina, you require 4 witnesses, whereas in the case of rape, circumstantial evidence can be used. And then also later scholars in the Maliki tradition like Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki went a step further than Imam Malik ibn Anas and categorized the crime of rape as hiraba. Hiraba means war against God and the state. And the crime of hiraba attracts capital punishment of either death or cross amputation or crucifixion, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, إِنَّمَا جَزَاءُ الَّذِينَ يُحَارِبُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا أَنْ يُقَطَّعُوا أَوْ يُسَلَّبُوا إِلَى آخِرِ الْآيَةِ, to the end of the verse. So classical Islamic scholars saw the crime of rape as one which constitutes public harm and is both a crime against the state and also a crime against God. So there's also another important distinction added by Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, because in Islam, there's an important principle, which is that al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i wal yaminu ala man ankar. It means that the burden of proof is upon the claimant. The important distinction made by Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi is that, because in Islam, for example, if you accuse a chaste woman of fornication, if you cannot substantiate that with evidence, you're going to be lashed. So whereas in the case of rape, Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki, the judge made a very subtle distinction, whereas he identified the claim of rape as shakwa instead of iddia. If it were iddia, then it could, if for example someone comes and say such and such person has raped me, if it were regarded as iddia, if they couldn't substantiate that with evidence, they will be lashed, they will be subject to corporal punishment. So that's why Abu Bakr ibn Arabi regarded the crime of rape as shakwa, which is a claim. And claim by their virtue, they are not accepted or rejected. They are subject to further evidence in a competent court of law. That is how Muslim jurists addressed the question of rape. Is something which is very serious. And there's an anecdote, Abu Bakr ibn Arabi al-Maliki, the judge, some armed robbers were captured, and amongst them was a rapist. When they brought them in front of him, he sought for the opinions of the other judges or the other scholars, the other jurists. He wanted to punish the rapists and the armed robbers with the punishment of hiraba, which is death or cross amputation or crucifixion. Then some of the judges told him, "Innama al-hirabatu takunu fil amwal." That hiraba is limited to wealth. Then Abu Bakr ibn Arabi said he was perplexed and surprised, because he said rape is worse than theft or any stealing, because wealth, it should be categorized as hiraba and not just a simple crime.
Okay.
I hope I've made my point.
You've done well, and you've made a very, very valid point, especially for Ariwa. We know we're targeting this webinar at Ariwa, and we know that we usually use the excuse, okay, being that Ariwa is predominantly Muslim, and we also have Christians on this platform that are from Ariwa. We know that both religions, there is no religion that condones rape. But you have just given a backing to whatever you have said by referring to the Quran and pulling from the Quran, ayahs from the Quran that have backed the fact that rape is a sin. It is not something that we should hide. It is not something that we should support in any way. And we thank you for that. I hope everybody on this webinar is listening closely and taking notes and actually sending in their comments and questions, because we are taking them down and we will be addressing them shortly. So please stay with us, participate, lend your voice to this conversation, speak out. That's the point. We're trying to get ourselves to speak out, not only here, but after this webinar, we go on to speak out, use our voices to actually call to this cause and make the change that is needed. So I will now hand over to our next speaker. Her name is Malama Rahama Abdul Majid. She is the president, Mache Mutum, Women Writers Association. So if you speak Hausa, you know what that is. And she is also the general manager, Al Minhaj Free to Air Television. Rahama is also a women's rights advocate, and she is here. So I'd like to welcome her to the webinar. Good morning, Rahama.
Okay, so salamu alaikum, ‘yan uwa. Akan tasirin al'ada wajen hana mata magana da babban murya. And it's always hard to observe that more than half of our northern Nigerian women are held down because the cultural policy of Nigeria, which is the official document guiding the operation of culture, define culture as the totality of the way of life of our society. And as empowered by the Section 21 of Nigerian Constitution, the cultural officers are to intervene in all public policies in Nigeria, including gender discrimination and other human rights abuses. Yes, we won't dispute the fact that Nigerian Constitution prohibits discrimination on grounds of gender. but culture and misinterpreted religious law that derive its power from the same cultural policy na yawan janyo matsaloli a wannan bangaren. This has invited a serious gender imbalance in some area like education, whereby in about 8 northern states of northern Nigeria, only 30% of female complete secondary school. Ownership, women are denied legal right to own property. Yes, civil law entitle women to have access to land, but their ability to obtain land flows through marriage or family. Even some data from the government indicate a significant gender gap in land ownership. Level of violence against women are high, not especially akan lamarin fyaɗe. Women are sexually harassed, abused, and killed even for rituals. When a woman is involved in adultery, which is of course is committed with a man, but always the woman always gets punished while the man walks away free. Pressures to keep silence and stigma surrounding sexual violence means that few women report sexual abuse. Wata ƙarin matsala ita ce weak economic base. Women in northern Nigeria occupy only 21% of non-formal sector position, regardless of their educational qualification, and women occupy fewer than 30% of all posts in public sectors. Ko kasuwanci muke so ne, our access to bank loan is restricted by our limited financial resources. So dole mata suka koma su ne suyan kosai, suyan waina, man gyaɗa, kuli, saboda a samu ribar 50 naira, 100 naira, and even that wannan kuɗin ma ɗan ƙanƙani. Their husband will still want you to contribute a kuɗin cefane. A ɓangaren weak political representations, women and men have the same right to vote and stand for election in Nigeria. But did the haka, women comprise a small percentage of elected offices in Nigeria. So with all this, ta ina za a ji wa muryar mata? A ɓangaren gender preference, iyaye sun fi so su haifi namiji akan mace. Kuma idan ma an haifi mace, women are viewed and treated as second-class citizens in their own home. So a picture of how this discrimination against women is affecting national development may not be handy within my 5 minutes, but some of this are lack of women in decision-making positions. Of course, if she is not there, how can we hear her voice? Of course, because she is not there. Reluctance to take responsibility in politics due to lack of economic empowerment to actualization to household. So we need to move with time by doing away with inherited, unproductive, and visionless tradition of discrimination of women. We need to set up schemes and projects to grow gender-conscious population without any form of discrimination. I hope my 5 minutes is still not exhausted because I'm still having something to say. Parents should treat and raise children, please and please, on basis of equality. The Nigerian constitutional provision of equality for all citizens should be enforced. Schools and universities should develop curriculum for gender studies. Dole a ilimantar da cultural processes and institutions akan yadda za su rika gudanar da hukunci ba tare da wariyar jinsi ba. The mass media should contribute in search for a new lease of life by projecting programs and views that support equality for all Nigerians. Kuma kungiyoyin mata ba a bar ku a baya ba, because women advocacy like me, groups and initiatives should be forthcoming with facts and concrete suggestions in their campaign for social justice.
But right now we're going to our last speaker. His name is Malam Hamzat Lawal. A number of you know him. He's an accomplished advocate in Nigeria with a track record for holding government accountable, which we need here. So this is another issue. This is why we have him here. So, and he is also the founder and chief executive of Connected Development, that's called, founded in 2012 and it is the largest accountability and transparency organization in Africa. You can imagine how much he has done, and we hope that he's going to bring something to this conversation and actually help us move forward with spreading the word. So Malam Hamzat, if you're there, I am welcoming you to the webinar and saying a very good morning.
Good morning, moderator. Assalamu alaikum, Jama. And I will talk a bit about data. And if you look at data around abuse of women and children, sadly, it is mostly domiciled in northern Nigeria. And if you look at states that have passed the Violence Against Person Prohibition Act 2015 and the Child Rights Act of 2003, it shows that most northern states haven't domiciled these acts in their state. And then it begs for you to wonder, is it that we have leaders who are actually creating or enabling this menace in our society? Because if you look at the map, and my colleagues have instituted them into the hall of shame, and I believe we must do better, because as much as we would continue conversation around how best we can tackle this menace, our most important role and responsibility is holding our elected officials accountable, both from local to state and national. That being said, I think that as a society, we have gotten it wrong. When we hear about issues or cases of rape, the first thing families and households want to do is to encompass it and want to shut down this voice. At first, they would even want to question the sanity of the person who have come forward, or they would say that just keep quiet, this is a house matter, and we would deal with it. And if you look at statistics, and let's talk about data of people who have perpetrated this act, there are people that are around us in our household, people who are our neighbors, sometimes even family members, sadly. And I believe we have a greater role to play, because if we suppress this voice and we continue to suppress the voices of victims, what we're doing is we're enabling rapists to continue to rape women and children and abuse their fundamental human rights. And I believe that, you know, as much as we also debate this, let's look at our legal and regulatory framework. Our constitution is complicit in this matter, because our constitution does not even protect women or children, as the case may be. And I know that we can continue this debate around at what age do we define a girl to have, to what age, you know, Islamically, do we define a girl to be able to be given out for marriage? I know my brothers and the various scholars have had this debate around, when a lady or girl has reached her puberty stage, we can give her out to marriage. But let's tell ourselves the truth. Would you allow your 13-year-old daughter to be given out for marriage and be abused? Is a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old matured enough to run a house? Because when you talk about this, it's in this context. Can a 13 or 15-year-old run a house? Can she take care of, her husband and run a household? Let's be fair to ourselves. I would not give my daughter, who is 10, 13 or 15-year-old out, give her hand out in marriage. Not because I don't believe in the doctrine of my religion, but because she is not mentally, psychologically, physically matured enough to become a mother or to even become a wife. I believe that as advocates, as he for she advocate, as scholars, as activists, we must do better. And we must put forward humanity and protecting the human race, the gender, the girls, above anything else. I want my 10-year-old, my 13 or 15-year-old daughter to be in school at that age and get knowledge and more wisdom rather than giving her hand out in marriage. But in dealing with this, we must look at it from a constitutional point of view, a policy point of view, a regulatory point of view, how is the police responding? Because the police is also complicit. We've seen cases that have been taken to the Nigerian police force, and sadly, it is swept under the carpet. NAPTIP, who the law has empowered to bring justice to this victim, how have they responded? And as you know, I do a lot of work around transparency and accountability. I think that we're only providing lip service, because if you also look at budget appropriation to various government MDAs that are meant to respond, they get nothing or as little as peanuts to be able to respond. Mind you, when victims also come forward, society would start picking on them. There's discrimination already when you come forward. So for us to ensure that we create an enabling voice, we must ensure our voices are louder than the voices that want to intimidate victim or silence this victim. Because if we don't get it right, we cannot develop and move forward as citizens or as even as a country. And this menace, sadly, is domiciled in northern Nigeria. Wallahi abunna ya bani mamaki. And ya kamata dukkan mu sa hannun mu tare mu ci gaba a wannan country saboda issue na rape yayi baya. Thank you.
So the next question is to Abdurrahman, Mala Abdurrahman. The question is, you mentioned claim of rape, since there is a rule that states that if someone reports a rape without substantial evidence, they will be lashed. Doesn't this encourage silence? Because there are some victims who might report immediately, but due to this, may want to hold back.
Okay, thank you. But I think the question I missed my point. What I said that is the scholars use the term shakwa. When it's shakwa, then a claimant is not punished. But this rather both the accused and the accuser are given a fair chance to defend themselves. And I must point out that also this is not a license for false accusations, which unfortunately have become very common if we look at a lot of things that have been happening on social media especially. I think that the question that we should collectively ask ourselves, Jamil, is why haven't the northern states passed the VAP Act? Maybe if there are areas of contention, these areas should be ironed out, I think. Assalamu alaikum.
Some people are raising their hands to speak.
Hello.
All right, we have Zara.
Baba Ngida, yes, please. Each time we talk about this, I'm emotional. However, I have two questions. Why are we not leveraging on DNA evidence in Nigeria to prosecute these criminals? Technology has advanced. We shouldn't be where we are. I feel like there's a total lack of will to fight this menace. The second question is why the National Assembly has been dilly-dallying to enact stiffer laws. How do you get to rape? Just a few days ago, a 3-month-old baby was raped. How is this conceivable? This should be an emergency. I don't understand why they've not convened an emergency session to make the punishment for rape the death penalty. It's either that or a maximum life sentence. It is so annoying. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Zara. Thank you. I think what you said is really makes sense, because DNA is something that has even the cases in the 80s and 70s in America that where people went to jail falsely for has been solved by using DNA. They've now been solved. People have been vindicated, and other people, criminals that were roaming around free, have actually been captured. So I think it's something that Nigeria needs to look into, because if we have in vitro clinics and things that we didn't think were possible in Nigeria before, then we should have at least labs that can carry out DNA experiments and actually expose these perpetrators who keep on saying that she's lying to a 2-year-old that is claiming that you've raped her, and you're telling the 2-year-old that she's lying, and the police are actually saying, and your lawyers are actually saying, yes, if they say the child is lying, the child is lying. So I think DNA is like a core thing that can actually help this cause. I'd like to check. Do we have any more questions?
I joined this conversation to say that I have heard so much of what people are speaking in terms of the relationship, the legal relationship in definition and response to rape under Sharia and under the penal code or the criminal code. I think there's a distinction in both the recognition and the procedure. And those of us who are lawyers in the house, or those of you who are lawyers in the house, I think you owe it to listeners to understand this difference. With the criminal and penal code, the definitions, of course, derive from the Constitution. And yes, nobody argues about the supremacy of the Constitution. But the Constitution also recognizes Sharia and customary laws. So under Sharia law, which has the court structures that are nearest to our people, that is to citizens at the level of Sharia court, a Sharia court of appeal, upper Sharia court and upper Sharia, we have to find a way that the recognition and the procedure for rape is understood as something fairly distinct from what you have under the criminal and the penal code. For example, when you see rape, the clear definition of rape, as it were, is not in the dictum, in the provisions of Sharia. It has other definitions or other ways of identifying it and the procedure for prosecution. So I ask the people who are lawyers and who are Sharia, maybe experts in the room, to give us that distinction so that people understand. The second thing about the penal and the criminal code is, yes, as was pointed out by the barrister who spoke, Barrister Denge, that is, the laws are archaic and in themselves they allow for perpetration of violence. And that is why we struggled for 14 years for the VAP Act. Now, the VAP Act in itself is not enough. We need to look at things like the Evidence Act, which comes to, support either what we're asking for in terms of the expansion of the horizon, and then the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. These are concurrent legislations we should also be looking at, apart from clamoring for domestication and also financing for implementation. Thank you, and I will speak to another thing later. Thank you.
I think Amina Saliu can talk now. After Amina Saliu, we can have Afsat Shuaibu. We'll have Amina Saliu now. Thank you.
Thanks indeed, my sister too. Assalamu alaikum, dear sisters and brothers. Thank you very much for the opportunity of this conversation and for having men and women at the table. My big sister Sodeto has spoken about the legal dimension, so I am going to leave that aside for later discourse. I want to stay away from law for a moment, because my premise is that law is necessary but insufficient to address the problem we have in our hands. We first of all, like the theme of today's conversation talks about silence not being golden, we need to commit to speak out and speak up more for survivors and for victims.
Yeah.
The reason why the Al-Majri issue is a big issue in northern Nigeria now is because colleagues like those of us on the line today made it a problematic that our leaders have to address. If rape is declared the epidemic that it has become in northern Nigeria, our leaders have to sit up. How do we do that? We have media practitioners in the room. We have people who are teaching in the room. We have ustazis online who have followership, who need to talk about this thing. Because it's because our leaders are not honest. Because people are organizing around rape. #NorthNormal is an organization of young girls and boys organizing against rape. And there are leaders in northern Nigeria who are saying that by talking about rape in northern Nigeria, they are actually maligning their character. Yet, can we deny that girls and boys who go to Islamia are raped by their malams? Who is talking about that? I've heard someone say this morning that victims and survivors are silent. They are not silent. They are silenced. And there's a distinction. You're silenced when you want to speak, when you have something to say, but you're not allowed to say it. So we need to rise from this conversation today thinking about a campaign.
that starts with personal leadership, to use our different fora to ensure that our sermons on Fridays, whenever we have conversation, is about the epidemic of rape in northern Nigeria. Second, to demand that our governors actually determine that we have a crisis on our hands and we need to do something about it. The VAP Act has been passed by 14 states in Nigeria, and only 3 of them are from northern Nigeria. The Administration of Criminal Justice Act has been passed by about 35 states in Nigeria. That means many of the states in northern Nigeria have passed the ACJA. But they're not looking at rape as a criminal offense, whereas it is. See, the lawyers in the House have to show personal leadership. How? You have to test the ACJA, where, because it has been passed in virtually all states in Nigeria, to use it as a law that criminalizes rape. Even if you do not win that case, you would have been setting a judicial precedence. The third personal leadership I would like to appeal to us this morning is that we think about the way we raise our boys. We focus on raising our girls to be perfect women, to be good wives, to be humble and obedient, and we do not teach our boys how to be respectful of our girls who later become their wives. So we are raising perfect women, but we're not raising perfect husbands for them. We're not raising perfect men who respect their rights. If we do not do that, we will be having these kind of conversations and nothing will change. Let us have a case of someone who has been violated and who is willing to speak up, and let us support them. Final for me is, if we have sexual and assault referral centers, can we make that a practical point to ensure that people have the contact numbers, they know where the addresses are, and they know what to do in case of a rape? What I'm saying is, we ourselves need to break that silence. We are colluding when those of us that have voice are actually not using the voice that we have. And my question to the Malam, thank you very much for your excellent intervention, is to ask, if a child today is raped in northern Nigeria in the context of Islam, where does that child go to? Where does that family go to? Because we have had instances of stories where even when a Malam is caught red-handed, there is a divide. Some will say to you, Allah is all forgiving, you should forgive the Malam. Some will say, no, the Malam should face punishment. What exactly is the ruling? And which school of thought are we even, which school of thought are we going to work with? Because there are different schools of thought. You did say that Maliki school is the one that we subscribe to, but we know there are other schools of thought. So where do we even go for succor? So that before we even talk about the law and the police, we ourselves are offering personal leadership. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Mala Abdurrahman Sani, I think because we've had 2 really very important questions that have been thrown at the speakers. I think maybe we should tackle this, and if there's more time, we'll take another question before we move on to hearing from NAPTIP. Hassana Mohammed Mikailu is in the house, and she hopes to bring some answers to us if you have questions. So I think we'll first take the Amina Salihu's question, and then we'll go to her sister's question, Saudatu Mahdi. So Mala Abdurrahman Sani, we need answers.
Okay, thank you. I think she asked about whether about some people may be claiming that God is all forgiving or whatnot. I think this has no precedence in the whole of Islamic discourse, because this is zulm, this is injustice. There's nowhere that it says that maybe if someone perpetuates this sort of injustice against someone, that he should be forgiven. That's why I prefaced initially with the concept of hiraba, which is war against God and the state. It means even a victim cannot forgive this crime, because it is a crime against both God and the state. Even recently, one of our Islamic scholars, Sheikh Khamis al-Misri, took a case like this to the court. Is an ongoing battle. A case some people reported to him that a father raped his, I think, 2 daughters. Sheikh Khamis al-Misri, he's an Islamic scholar based in Kaduna. He's the one who took the case to the court. So that's that. Thank you.
We take the next question. We have a question for Barrister Hafsa. The question was, why is the law silent?
Okay, actually, that's what we've been talking about all this while. The law is not silent. we've stated that the Constitution prohibits it. We have the penal codes, we have the criminal codes, and we have other legislations, you know, that prohibits rape. So the law is not silent on it, please. We are just looking for what do you call it? For domestication of laws that expands on those issues and that seeks to protect what do you call it? Victims, and also to punish offenders.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Barrister Hafsat, can I ask you to just please come on, because you speak both Hausa and English, and just invite Nana Khadija on.
Thank you very much. Actually, Nana Khadija Center is a center that was just launched in Sokoto to help victims of rape and other gender-based violence.
I am delighted to be in your midst. I have been learning, I have been jotting, my hands have been moving faster than my biro. And I'm so glad to be amongst all of you. Like my sister, Barrister Hafsat said, Nana Khadija Center is new, but because of all the issues I've heard today, I think we do not have time to crawl, so we are going to start running, by God's grace. It was launched on the 19th of March, 2020. With the aim to help sexual assault survivors or victims, if you may. We operate in a very confidential environment. We are located in Specialist Hospital, Sokoto, Sultan Abubakar Road. And we make sure that our environment has trust, respect, and we make sure that our survivors are treated with optimal respect. We do not discriminate against them. And the center is client-focused. We let them lead us on what we should do with them. Basically, we provide 3 services at the center. The first and famous is the counseling service, which includes the therapy session and the psychosocial counseling. You know, when victims have undergone a whole lot of mayhem or things done to themselves emotionally, their bodies, their mind, they will need someone to talk to. So we sit with them, we listen to them, we offer advice, we offer counseling that will help them come out of their shell. And secondly, we have doctors and nurses that are trained on forensic and medical examination. So after the counseling section, they are taken into the nurses' quarters where the doctors check them to verify their stories and also to check for damages or physical bruises done to their bodies. And we also provide them with medical care. And we run a couple of tests within the policy that covers the center using the laboratory in Specialist Hospital. We are bothered because what we offer to our clients is short term, and so we work with other network of organizations that provide legal advice, child protection, sometimes for victims that have become pregnant during rape. We also offer them free ANC through a hospital in Sokoto called Mariam Abacha Hospital. We've had a victim come to our center. Her little baby was raped, and she reported the case to a police station, and she came to the center to access help. When she went back home, the elders of the community where she resides came to her and forced her to go and apologize to the perpetrator. They said she was tarnishing his image. That story up until now still bothers me. Whenever I think about it, I shed tears. The second story we've had was of a victim that was raped and she was rejected by her family. She had nowhere to go. She was beaten, she was thrown out of the house, she was labeled, so she's living somewhere now away from home. And both parents are alive and she has relatives and nobody wants to be associated with her.
The third story that is very heartbreaking was a case of a little girl that is less than 2 years old that was raped. And everybody said she caused it upon herself. Why will she be walking without clothing? And I asked this question. Most of the times, our survivors do not come back because there are voices where they stay in the persons of community leaders, religious leaders who have asked them to do sulhu. You know, they tell them, azo azona tari, atattauna. I do not believe in sulhu anymore. I feel it's a very lazy way of solving a problem. If something is wrong, it is wrong. There is no amount of sulhu that is going to make it right. And these people, they rape women and oppress them. Where are we going to with this kind of attitude in this society? And fellow women that are supposed to rally around these persons are the same people who bring them out and shame them publicly. It is so disheartening for us at the center because our services do not go beyond caring for our survivors and our victims. We do not have direct responsibilities to the perpetrators except we refer. So sometimes we are restricted and it's very painful. So I plead with everybody on this platform. If you are part of the other network that we refer to, if you are in Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Women Affairs, or other partners that are saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that these perpetrators are brought to book, please do your job and do it well. Thank you. Thank you very much, Florence. That you've just brought the reality to us. I know most of us hear stories about what's going on and we don't actually see it, but you are at the forefront and you're battling this issue firsthand. I'd like to thank you for your bravery. I'd like to thank you for your determination to do something about the victims and turn them into survivors of this issue. It is so sad, everyone. You can hear that this is what has brought us to this webinar, and it is an issue we need to address. We need to raise our voices. Sulhu for what? It is a crime. A crime has been committed against a child, and you bring the child to face her rapist, and then you're adding to the shock, adding to the trauma. It's a terrible thing. We really need to raise our voices. I hope all the men on this platform that are listening try to be the change. Please help us, support us, raise your own voices, talk to your fellow men, your friends, your brothers, your sons. Please, we're trying to make a difference here. We're trying to do something here. We are not planning to keep quiet after this webinar. We are planning to raise our voices. So if we can take one last question, because I don't know if Hassana Mohammed Mikailu is still here from NAPTIP. We need to hear something from you, even if it's for 2 minutes, before we go to a final question and round up. We're trying to stick to time.
We have a question from Fiona Oladimiji, and it is to Barrister Hafsat. She's asking, why is there no law to hold parents responsible for failure to protect and safeguard their children? The police can deal with the rapist, but who handles issues with parents?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think that issue would have been taken care of in the Child's Rights Act that some states have actually domesticated. And it takes care of a lot of issues that would end the al-majri, malnutrition of children. And actually that law actually holds parents responsible, for their words or for their children. So it's part of why we're here to emphasize the need for advocacy to domesticate these laws. And also it is very important for me to state here that I was fortunate to be part of a webinar done by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, where himself stated that those clauses, particular clauses that contravenes the Sharia or Islamic law, can be expunged or replaced or amended. So I think with that, we can say that by the time the stakeholders sit on this, look at these laws, take away those gray areas, we can be able to have a very good law that will protect children and women in all aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have some hands up. Gideon Paramalam.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, please, to the organizers for inviting me. This is my first time, and I actually thought I was just going to listen and not say anything, but I just thought because we're concluding, I want to say something, and then just to close with a suggestion that I had in mind to make, and then one of the speakers actually made that suggestion. So I wanted to affirm that. One, generally, I think that the truth is this: the culture of impunity is destroying not only our country, but society. It is also destroying our faith, whether it's Islam, people are losing faith, or Christians, people are losing faith in religious leaders. And I'm saying this as one, because I'm a reverend, and I'm also involved in advocacy. And I know the kind of pain that people have, especially victims on some of these issues. So I would like to agree with the suggestion that was made in relation to our escalating the suggestion for DNA testing of those who perpetuate this act of rape. Second, I also like what, I hope I got a name correct, Amina Salihu, which was the original suggestion I wanted to make. Because I'm a reverend and I deal with top church leaders in this country and out of Nigeria, and also have a strong relationship with the Muslim communities, the leaders, because I engage in peace building, I was going to propose a joint action by Muslim leaders and Christian leaders. But we need to be very careful, and we need to be intentional in getting people who truly have integrity. We would have to do background tests on anybody we're recommending into that joint action. And then we can raise a united voice against rape in this country. That's what I would like to suggest. And I hope that we will not just end up with a webinar chat, but we can also go beyond that to put in concrete steps into our conversations. By the way, I'll just end by saying that I live with this issue. I deal with it daily because my wife is involved in helping women that are abused. So these are stories I listen
Thank you, Gideon. Okay. Saudatu Madi, can you come on and give us your 1 minute, please? Unmute yourself and give us your 1 minute. Thank you, Saudatu Madi.
Thank you, Tung. Just to quickly go through 3 major issues. One, impunity. Impunity in northern Nigeria is not just about rape or domestic violence. It is about the entire accountability to gender that we see impunity. Secondly, the quality of investigations in rape where people are proposing DNA. Our major challenge with the prosecution of rape cases is the quality of investigation, which includes DNA, preservation of evidence, as well as presentation of documentation from the first information report. That needs to be improved, and the advocacy needs to be put in place. Lastly, speaking to Reverend Paramalam, where he's talking about interfaith responses to gender-based violence. The Bayero University Kano Center for Islamic Civilization and Interfaith Dialogue is going to work with RAPA to convene 4 dialogue sessions that will bring faith and culture leaders, especially faith leaders across the major religions, to discuss and find common grounds in responding to violence against women. Thank you, too.
Thank you very much.
Can we have Zainab Suleiman? You have your hands up. Zainab Suleiman, you have 1 minute. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. Let me use this opportunity to thank the WFM and Walda, including. And my own contribution is based on mother and daughter relationship. That is the lack, like there's a shyness. We are in the northern part of the country. There's this shyness between mother and daughter, which most of these victims find it hard to tell their parents that this is what happened, even if they had been threatened by those people that did the rape. But the problem here is for that daughter to have that confidence to tell her mom that this is what happened, that shyness and that relationship that is not between, the openness that is not between the mother and daughter is one of those things that contribute. I think this is time for the women, that is our mothers, to understand that this time, the mothers should understand that the children too should be given a chance to talk mostly on all these things that deals with sexual issues. I think this is my own contribution. Thank you for having me, and thank you for making this webinar a success. Thank you.
So we have Nafisa.
What I have to say is we really need the legal system and every other stakeholder to support this fight, especially the issue of value reorientation. We want to see it in schools, in our school curriculum, so that our children can be trained more on it on a daily basis. Sex education, even though our scholars have been shying their eyes away from it, it needs to be brought on board. Every child needs to be educated on sex. Every child needs to know that they have rights. And then we need to conduct how-to-how mobilization or visits where parents, especially mothers, need to be enlightened about how dangerous or exposed their daughters are or their boys. And then there are many things that have been done in Kebbi State presently, especially by Her Excellency, Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, which I'm sure if other ladies can imbibe on that or copy from that, it will go a long way, and then we'll be more protected. There are many things that are happening in our northern states, but we cannot shy our eyes again. We can't keep quiet. We cannot be silenced. And then the culture of silence is not just at the grassroots alone. Even with the elites, we ourselves, most of us are not confident enough to speak out because of one or two reasons. Then what do we expect from those that are not even in school or they don't even have the room to talk? We have to break that silence. The vicious cycle is so strong that we cannot fight it alone. But then we have a few male ambassadors that are trying to join us. Male engagement is very important. Social inclusion cannot be overemphasized, its importance in fighting rape cases. But then, how can we do that without acknowledging them? There are a few of them that can be brought on board to take the lead. And this goes beyond just advocating in the mosque, on Friday sermons. It needs to be done on daily basis during the 5 daily prayers, so that people can learn more, people can hear it more, and then not just understand it, but also imbibe by it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Assalamu
alaikum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's been a pleasure being in your mix. I would like to congratulate you all, especially Town and our colleagues, for organizing this very important topic. Really, I was touched with the recent touching life made by the previous speaker about that lady that the small girl that we were told that she was raped, and then she was asked again to go and apologize. Please, if I may suggest, why don't we take it up again? We are willing to join this crusade to ensure that we brought this nonsense to an end. We are ready to partner with you people at any time, whether through our personal foundation we have or otherwise, whichever way you needed our contribution, we are willing to assist. Please, especially so you know where we are, and then you know what we can, the level of what we can do. Thank you very much. I wish you the best, and may Allah see you through on this effort you are making.
Thank you very much. Hope, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
And please remember you have 1 minute. Hope.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everybody. It has been an interesting discussion and a scary one, especially that the bringing it home by Florence. I hope I got her name right. But the reality is this: somebody said it. I think the younger woman that said parents getting involved. But most importantly now, apart from us doing this on the webinar, the percentage of the webinar coverage is, we know. I believe that as a teacher, the time has actually come to do aggressive mass campaign using dialect. The media must get involved. Advert, people that are doing promos on billboard, while you're putting your product, put these things out there in the languages that everybody understands in their various communities. And with this, we can put more fear, because the reality is that exposure will make people deter and bring some correction and give people boldness to start speaking. And that's my discussion. Media, religion has to join in and start talking about it every day. Let's do an intentional teaching of this. Billboard discussion should go viral and let people be restrained. So that's what I wanted to suggest.
We have Khadija.
Let me say good afternoon quickly, and I really appreciate this program, especially at a time like this. I just wish to also suggest that beyond advocacy visits or whatever you call it to religious leaders and the rest, there's a need also to engage the police. I have had cause to be involved in a rape case, and what I saw in the police station with the police, especially most of them because they are men, was something very, very appalling. So I think there's also the need to engage them. Also the need to engage our judges and justices, because quite a number of them do sit on these cases. When you take it to them, they laugh over it and they know how they will just dismiss it. And then again, this deliberate effort by the police to make sure that the rapist gets away with his criminal act is that a clear case of rape will now be sent to a magistrate court, knowing very well that it will be reduced to what they call defilement or whatever. So I think where I see this problem is with the police, because they are the ones to prosecute. So once you are not on the same page with them, you will always have a problem in terms of making sure that the perpetrator is brought to book. So I just want to add this. I wish there's more time. Would have discussed some of the things we've yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fiona, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for having me. I think what I wanted to say, and if people have been reading my comments, they would understand where I'm coming from. I'm a social worker in the UK, and while most of the time, when cases like this come up, the thing that goes on is the police take on the case with the rapist, but then we look into the handling the case with the family and holding the parents responsible for their failure to protect their child. It is really sad and appalling that I have noticed that there is a 3-month-old baby that was raped. My first question would be, where are the parents? Who was this child in the care of? What is going on? A lot of talk has been done today regarding the police, the courts of law, the law in Nigeria and all that, but I've not really heard much being done around holding the parents responsible. For goodness sake, somebody put a question about the hospital and patient consent when the doctor, things need to be done. I'm really keen on finding out what actions will be taken today from this meeting to find out. I know the previous speaker before me was talking about engaging the police. We need action. who is going to engage the police? We need named people that will do things. Who is going to then start doing the campaign? Who is doing that? You know, we can all the time give suggestions, but we need named people and actions about what can be done. I'm really interested in finding that out. But parents need to be held accountable. So thank you.
Thank you, Fiona.
Okay, so quickly, I just want to add something. I'm actually really happy to be part of this, and I'm happy with a lot of points and suggestions and contributions that I've heard so far. But I'm also thinking that is there any kind of maybe let's say mechanism or any kind of platform to find out how these rapists also think, maybe to interview them and find out what's going on in their own heads, or what prompted them. Also, getting into their minds might help us know. And also talking concerning our own male children, we're all talking about parenting and how we could also curb this and, you know, train our children. So maybe if we could also know, so it can help us in raising our own children and what to do and what not to do. I don't know if that will help, but I'm thinking maybe there should be something like that to all interview them and find out what it is going on with them, aside from all that I've heard so far.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona, for that comment. And I would like to assure each and every person that participated in this webinar that each and every suggestion and issue raised here is going to be taken seriously. We have partners already, RAPA, MacArthur Foundation, they're doing a lot. In fact, words cannot express our gratitude to these organizations. So the good news is that we are going to be partnering with them, and all the suggestions and issues raised here are not going to be kept under the table. I assure you that. We're going to look at each and every suggestion objectively, take action, and we'll keep you posted on ways forward and what is actually done and what we all collectively need to do. Thank you.
Nana Aisha, over to you. Unmute and let's take a few more comments, please, before we go to our speakers.
Good afternoon once again. So I'm going to still say that in Sokoto, we have what we call the Sokoto Gender-Based Violence / Child Protection Response Team, which involves the police, the civil defense, legal practitioners. Nana Khadija Center, of course, is part of that, Save the Child, and other partners who are working in this very sphere to protect women and children. So there's something brewing up, and it's still, I'm sure they would make it very public very soon. So we have all those people on board trying to see that justice is served, just to add to what Barrister Hafsat has said. And also concerning, somebody talked about media and sensitization programs. So we have Project Alert working day and night to ensure that there are community dialogues, there are town hall meetings, there's sensitization on Twitter, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and other conventional and traditional platforms, telling women about their rights and also sensitizing parents about what to do when this kind of things happen to them. So back to my question, I just want to ask the lawyers in the house and people who have worked so long in the gender-based violence projects, is there a law in place to protect women in PUDA? I'll repeat myself again. Is there a law in place to protect women in PUDA? Because we've had issues of someone calling, someone calling, and we couldn't get back to her because I think the husband seized the phone. We don't even know where she's calling from. She just started reporting when there was this noise at the background. We tried to call her back. That phone has been switched off for the past 3 weeks. And we are worried. What can be done? How can women who are in PUDA and are facing domestic violence be reached?
Okay, thank you very much. This is one of the reasons why we need to domesticate the VAMP Act. Because as I've stated earlier on, it is more in tune with the realities of today. And it may interest you to note that it covers across all forms of gender-based, all forms of violence against persons, not just rape. So by the time we have a law domesticated and operational, we can be able to arrest that kind of issue. We can collaborate with the communication companies to locate the victims, to know the victims' exact location. Then we have courts that can grant warrants and all that. We have all these things in place. But the implication, what do you call it? Implementation is low, and that's because a lot of people from the community are not taking this seriously. And please, I would like to suggest that each and every one of us is from a rural community. A call to action that I would like everybody to be involved in is for us to do the little we can to educate people from our rural communities on these issues. They don't know that there are places they can go for help. They don't even know that it is an offense. And they don't know how serious an offense, rape, or any form of violence is. So we can start from our own local communities, our neighbors, our NUA at the villages. So I think it's a very serious issue, and the time for action is now.
All right, we have Jumai Mohammed. Thank you very much, Hafsat, for that. We have Jumai Mohammed. Jumai, for 1 minute. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I joined late. Just wanted to lend my voice to what's been the discussion that has been going on. And I do concur with most of everything that is being said, really, especially when Zainab spoke like a few minutes ago. I hope everyone is hearing me about our children getting more and more agitated about not getting enough education, sex education in school. The Northern culture does not allow you to have, to be open with children. You know, 2 weeks ago, my daughter had a webinar on her Instagram page. She manages a page, You Matter Foundation. And their question was rape culture in Nigeria, racism and the angry Black woman labeling. You know, how do we transform our rage? I just wanted to say that I lend the voice and say, okay, the rage is going on among our children, and they are blaming most of us, the mothers and our generation, really, you know, for that silence, culture of silence. So this topic is very apt. Well done to the organizers, and let's see how we can move it forward. I'm calling from Niger State. Unfortunately, I've not seen really anybody who is online with you from Niger. So I don't know if you have partners in Niger, and we'll see how we can partner with them as well, so that we see how we can move this forward. Because my daughter, she's 20, the generation is really crying out now. You know, they're agitating for more to be done. We know it's almost a closed society, but things are opening up. The anger on that day, it was a 2-hour program. The anger on that day was a bit something. It was something that we were not anticipating, really. And the stories shared were appalling. Thank you for giving me the 1 minute.
Thank you, Ma, for that contribution. It is amazing when you hear the stories, horrible stories out there. And I'm so proud of your daughter. I'm sure would love to work with her, love to join forces and actually be the change. I'm not surprised that young women are crying out and are angry, but I am so glad that they're trying to transform that rage into something positive and actually make that change. If you're listening here, you're a parent, you can hear that the children coming behind us are getting enraged and they are blaming us. We need to amplify our voices now so that they know we do not condone the act of rape. The theme of this webinar is Silence No Longer Golden. We're trying to tackle the problem of rape, a pandemic in northern Nigeria. We need to wake up. I am so happy at the turnout. I am so happy at the contribution. We are excited that this conversation, we're having it, as Florence said, she said we're crawling, not running, so we need to run. We're late in the game. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not something that we're on time with. We're late in the game, so we need to do more. We need to strike now. The time is now. A lot of you have brought that point up. And I've heard somebody, I was reading some of the comments, and I think there are lots of suggestions and taking questions, but somebody mentioned tasking the religious leaders. For those of you who go for Friday sermon, please ask the question every Friday. Make it every Friday. When the imam is done doing the Friday sermon, ask him, say, please, I have a question on rape. What is your position? Let's challenge our leaders, our religious leaders. Let's challenge them openly. Let them say what their stance is. We need to get people on board. But apart from that, we cannot rely on them and wait. That is why we are imploring you to use your voice. Please, let's use our voices. So I'll hand back to Farida, and then she will do her vote of thanks, I think. And at this point, she'll come back to me and we will.
Nana Aisha, I think we need to get our speakers to do their 1 minute before we do vote of thanks. So let us go to Malam Hamza Lawal. Malam Lawal, do you want to give us your 1 minute final words? Thank you.
Well, thank you, my sister Tong. I think that Arewa, we pride ourselves to have rich culture, and we're proud of our culture that provides safe space to protect women and girls. I think that we need to be deliberate in our actions, in our advocacy, and in our messages to create safe havens and safe space for victims and survivors to speak up. We all have roles to play, and our collective role will go a long way for us to end this menace. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next steps of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malam Hamzat Lawal. We will definitely call on you. Muria Mata will call on you to support us on this. We can have Sani, if Abdulrahman Sani can just give us your 1 minute. Unmute yourself and give us your 1 minute. It would be nice if you can say this in Hausa though.
Okay, but bari in magana da abin na Hausa. So a takaice dai gaskiya ya kamata duka mu tashi tsaye saboda mu yaƙi wannan bala'i din. Saboda abu ne wanda kamar yadda musulunci ya zo ya tabbatar da adalci yana cikin abin da musulunci ya zo ya tabbatar. So wannan al'amari na fyaɗe abu ne mai baƙin ciki, wanda abu ne wanda yana da athar salbiya, yana affecting al'umma ta hanyoyi da dama. So a takaice dai ya kamata duka mu tashi tsaye mu yaƙi wannan fasadi cikin ƙasa, kamar yadda Allah subhanahu wataala shi da kai ne ya siffanta irin wa'anga abubuwa da fasadi a cikin ƙasa. Kuma mun ga shari'ar musulunci ba ta yi ƙasa a gwiwa ba wajen cewa a ɗaukan masu irin wa'anga aika-aika babban mataki mai tsauri sosai. So Allah ya taimake mu, kuma Allah ya ba mu ikon yin iya bakin kokarinmu. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will be calling on Barrister Hafsat, but just to mention that Dr. Hajo Sani has joined us. Dr. Hajo Sani is the SSA to the President in the office of the First Lady. We would be expecting her to give us a 1 minute comment, but I'll come to Barrister Hafsat Sahabi Dangi to make your comment, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Takaice dai banda dimbin farin ciki da godiya da zan yi da duk wanda ya zo nan, zan kuma faɗa ma jama'a cewa ni gani na abinda zai fi deterring perpetrators na wannan act in shine ya zamanto ana kama su kuma ana hukunta su. So ba za a samu yadda ake so ba wurin kama wayanda suka yi wannan laifi da hukunta su, sai an samu doka. Kuma aka samu doka in nan, ko a samu centers waɗanda za su iya bin waɗannan matakan da zai sa har a kama a hukunta mutum. Saboda a law akwai abin da ake ce ma evidence da sauransu, duk sai an bi waɗannan abubuwa sannan har a kai ga kama mutane. So centers din nan sun san abin da suke yi, sun san in ka zo za a ɗiba specimen ɗinka, za a yi formal police report, za a yi medical examination da sauransu. Amma in babu center, ba za a samu abin nan, cases din nan suna mutuwa ne cikin police station, kun gane. So don haka centers din nan kuma muna roƙon gwamnati da duk masu hannu da shuni, international organizations din da ke son su taimaka, ya zamanto akwai su a duka local governments na kowane state, ko ba a same su ba dai a duka, a dai iyaka kokari, so that a samu convictions. Mutanen mu sai sun ga an ce wane da wane yana can an ɗaure shi, wane da wane, sannan za su ƙara gane cewa to lalle fa magana fyaɗen nan fa muhimmiyar abu ce wadda ba zan sa kaina ciki ba. Kuma uwaye da masu gari za su dinga kiran ƴaƴansu suna jan kunnen su da kun ga abin da ya faru da ɗan uwanku. So thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate your presence. Thank you.
All right, if we can have a comment from the First Lady of Kebbi State, Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu. Thank you very much for joining us. She apparently joined us from the beginning. Please let's have your 1 minute comment, especially what you're doing in Kebbi State to support, to protect women and girls.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Well done. This is a very interesting and a different perspective. So congratulations to the organizers. I have been listening and I really enjoyed the different perspectives that you had on board. We have been a lot of webinars and discussions around this very topical issue.
Dr. Hajosani, your 1 minute, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Joe.
And those women and girls.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. Even though this invitation came very, very late, as I reply your text message to tell you that I will join you shortly, and I'm happy I'm part of it now. Congratulate you for this good work you are doing. I think your messages are reaching out everywhere. And I also want to start from where Dr. Zainab, First Lady of Kebbi State, stopped by saying that the structure on the ground, the governor's wives, which Her Excellency, the First Lady of Kebbi is representing, have their own structure, and going up from that of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Aisha Muhammad Buhari. As you are all aware, she just shortly round up presidential task force, which was inaugurated about 2 years ago on drug abuse, with General Marwa as the chairperson, and they have completed their report and submitted to the Mr. President. And now she's working on the presidential task force on the gender-based violence, which we are already getting the prospective members of that committee. And we hope very soon it will come up. So I would say that at all levels, things are being done, and I'm happy that your program will reach down to the grassroots, which is very important. We need to involve local champions. What I mean by local champion, we have women in the grassroots, and the northern issue is even more serious than anywhere in this country. And I'm happy we have somebody like Dr. Barrister Hafsat and people around that also can speak down the language for those people in the grassroots will be able to understand. We need to look at it critically from the point of view of children. I mean, children who are being raped in communities, in villages that we don't even know. And unfortunately, I need to say that even some of our traditional rulers that are supposed to be the gatekeepers, some of them are involved in this very serious act of raping younger children in the village. So I think the messages should go down to the grassroots. We should use the local languages, as I had many of them spoke in Hausa, at least for people who don't understand English will understand and also know the role they need to play. So on that note, I think issue of the northern violence or rape is really very serious. We need to identify people. We need to identify people, mostly women, that we can do the work down there in the villages and at the local levels. I thank you for this opportunity. I hope next time I'll be more prepared to look at it critically and also add my voice appropriately. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chima.
Thank you, Nana Aisha. Please, before you go, Amina Saliu just reminded us there's a Nigerian sexual offenders register. There is a Nigerian sexual offender register. We need to share this information out for people to know that NAPTIP, I think, is under the purview of NAPTIP.
Thank you so much. The National Sexual Offender Register is a database that comprises two things. The data of people who have been convicted, like you said, of rape, but also people who have been reported in the media, and also cases that have been reported by Nigerians for investigation. That's on one hand. On the other hand, it has a data of service providers, people who can help rape survivors, people who can help report and link you up with government or take your case to court, including FIDA, for example. However, you can write to NAPTIP and ask for the search of that database to see whether a certain name has been reported by anybody or not. You will get a reply telling you that, yes, this case has been reported, but the case is still in court, or the case was never charged to court. What that does is that it gives you information to act. And if you are, for instance, working with children, you are careful about who you are employing.
Yeah, we all need to be aware of that, and it's good information and vital information for us to have on this platform and for us to know and share when we leave here. Thank you very, very much, Amina Salihu. You have indeed been a positive addition to this conversation. Thank you. So everyone, before I begin, to thank you for your contribution. As you know, this webinar series was by Muriam Mata and Women's Radio, supported by MacArthur Foundation and RAPA, and also the International Institute of Education. We are so grateful to them, but we would like to give you this reminder as you leave here. Please speak up, support the victims and speak up. It is your voice that we are advocating for here. No victim shaming, please. These are our call for action. No victim shaming. Have a SARC in each northern state. We work with stakeholders to protect women and girls and engage our religious leaders and men to raise good boys and men. And let's also add our religious women, our mothers. We need to not take the focus of the girls, but actually equity, just be equal in your upbringing of your kids. Please, let's balance it. Don't raise perfect girls to deal with boys that don't know what they are doing or don't know what is right. So that is our call for action. I'd like to use this opportunity to thank a number of people. I'd like to thank our speakers who were very generous with their time today. They extended another 20 minutes, and I think we've actually spent 2 hours on this webinar, which has been very productive. I'd like to thank Barrister Hafsat Sahabi Denge. I also like to thank Malama Rahama Abdul Majid. I'd like to thank Malam Abdurrahman Sani. And last but not the least, I'd like to thank Malam Hamzat Lawal. You all were very insightful in bringing your perspective and your own opinions to this conversation. I thank you. I thank everyone who joined us. I thank the First Lady of Kebbi State. I thank the SS of the First Lady. I thank Mrs. Stone Okewale Sonaya. Thank you as always. Your strong shoulders is what carried this webinar. And I thank my co-moderator and Nana Aisha Mahmudu.
Bye. Thank you very much, everybody. We are grateful. We apologize to all those that we couldn't take your comments. We have a lot of people putting their hands up. We sincerely apologize that we couldn't take your comments. All the notes that we have here, we're going to take up all the notes. We're going to work with all stakeholders, and we will ensure that we continue to speak up and we continue to support ourselves until we have a better Nigeria that understands that every woman and every girl matters. Thank you very much, Saz. Thank you, Maz. Nagodi.
WFM 91.7.